Islam, the last militant monotheism. The monotheistic religions began some 4,000 years ago with the foundation of Judaism. What distinguishes monotheisms from other faiths or spiritual beliefs is the teaching that there is a single God as opposed to other ancient belief systems which may have a pantheon of multiple gods. Related to Judaism are Christianity and Islam, both of which have roots in Judaism and the Abrahamic tradition. It comes as no surprise to anyone listening to this, that human history is replete with conflict, in all cultures and in all geographies. In short, humans are conflict-prone. But what many in the Western world, other than historians, might think about is the degree to which conflicts and wars are waged on behalf of and on account of religion. The reason many in the West rarely, if ever, think along these lines today is because holy or religious wars have not been waged since the Crusades, which ended after the Ninth Crusade at the end of the 13th century. Militant Christianity persisted in Europe till after the 15th century, to include the Spanish Inquisition and the Spanish Conquest of the Americas in the 16th century. Thereafter, the conflicts between the colonial powers in America centered more around economic wealth than spiritual or doctrinal dominance. Going much further back in time to the 1st century AD, a war between the Jewish inhabitants of Israel and Imperial Rome was being waged in what was a series of rebellions against Roman influence, eventually resulting in the destruction of the main temple in Jerusalem. It could be said therefore that the last time Judaism had a dominant religious militant component was nearly 2,000 years ago, and the last time Christianity had a dominant religious militant component was about 500 years ago. It is my observation that Islam, especially in the Middle East, has a dominant religious militant component which is still alive and well today. I believe this is the root of all of the problems in the Middle East today. How did Judaism and Christianity escape from religious warfare? I believe there were a few factors which the Middle East did not benefit from. 1. The establishment of the United States with a secular constitution based on secular law, not explicitly on religious law. And 2. Mercantilism in the 18th century and the Industrial Revolution in the 19th century, which essentially guaranteed prosperity through commerce and technological innovation. Unfortunately, both of these developments did not touch the Middle East until quite recently by historical standards. Therefore, people in the West are blind to the notion that Muslim countries in the Middle East are still dominated by and wage wars on purely religious pretexts. What this implies for Hamas and the war in Israel is that the well-meaning far-left progressives in Western countries are being utterly misled by the false notion that Hamas is fighting for things we fight for in the West, like individual freedom and self-determination. Hamas is not interested in freedom and individuality and self-determination and liberty and pluralism. Hamas doesn't want democracy. Many of those who wave the Palestinian flag at rallies in the West might be shunned or killed for their liberal beliefs were they to live under Hamas rule. Hamas fights for Islamic dominance and only Islamic dominance. They are fighting a religious war. But Israel fights to preserve the ideals of the Western world. Israel fights for what we hold dear in the United States and Christian Europe: self-determination, liberty, and pluralism, self-determination, and the prosperity of industrialism and capitalism. While none of those concepts are without flaws, there is no doubt the Western world is more free than at any other time in recorded history. Hamas and militant Islam would destroy all of that. Which is why when liberal left progressives march for the freedom of Hamas and Palestine, those liberals have utterly no idea what they are marching for. The Palestinians, under the jackboot of Iran, Hamas, and militant Islam, don't care about those things. They care only about the destruction of Christianity and Judaism and the dominance of Islam over all. Among other reasons, this is why Israel and the West must prevail in the current conflict. To summarize, Hamas and Iran are fighting a purely religious war. They don't care about the freedom of the Palestinians. They care only about the dominance of Islam, Sharia law, and creating a pan-Islamic world. Israel fights to preserve liberty, justice, and secular tolerance, meaning all peoples and all faiths are welcome provided they abide by the civic, secular law. So next time you march on the streets, march for the right side.